Hi, and welcome to Queer View Mirror, a show about queer people, by queer people, for queer people, and our allies. I'm Scott.
And I am Dawn, and we are coming to you from the unceded territories of the Hoopichesed and the Shot peoples, where we live, love, and play.
Dawn, where are we?
What do you mean?
Well, every time we film an episode, we're in a different studio somewhere else.
Well, yeah, I know this is the third studio that we've been in because we are under renovation in our home studio, so it will become bigger and better. But in the meantime, we're here in this lovely studio, which Scott finds too remote for a 15-minute drive out on a country road, but it is a beautiful drive.
Well, when you told me it was a remote location, I thought it was a remote location. I didn't realize remote was the operative word there. I needed a Sherpa to bring me in.
Well, thank God your Sherpa drove you here, or guided you here.
Today we're being joined by Dr. Erin Devor, and Dr. Devor is the chair in Transgender Studies at the University of Victoria. Dr. Devor is here today to talk to us about the Moving Trans History Forward 2023 conference happening in March in Victoria.
It was a very interesting interview. And as a matter of fact, Scott said something a while ago before we started this filming about looking back at history. What is important about looking back at transgender history, Scott?
Well, it's all history. We don't understand how we're moving forward unless we know how we got here. So really, that's why we're always looking into the Queer View Mirror.
And that's exactly what we're going to do. This is Queer View Mirror coming at ya. In our interview today, we are going to be talking to Dr. Erin Devor, where I learned that the largest transgender archives are housed right here in the University of Victoria in Vancouver Island, British Columbia.
We were so fortunate to meet Dr. Devor at the Queer at Sea exhibit that was put on by the Maritime Museum of British Columbia. They had a wonderful opening night gala, and we ended up being introduced to him and hearing all about the Transgender Archives.
In our interview with Dr. Devor, we have learned so much. The language has evolved. First, we came across the term transsexual, then transvestite, and now we are understanding it as transgender. So let's go to an interview to find out more.
Joining us today is Dr. Erin Devor from the University of Victoria. And Erin, there's a lot of exciting things happening down there right now. So why don't you tell us about those?
Thank you, Scott. Thank you, Don. Happy to be joining you today, and thank you for your interest in what we do. So the easiest way to introduce what we're doing here is that I have a position at the University of Victoria called the Chair in Transgender Studies. And you can see behind me and around me posters of all the many things that we do. And this chair has been in existence since January 1st, 2016. It's the only position of this kind anywhere in the world. And we did have a partner or a peer for a little while in Buenos Aires, but that doesn't seem to be continuing on. So it was the first when it started, and continues to be the only one. So what is a chair in transgender studies? It is a research and community engagement position. And we have a number of large activities that we undertake, and then there are some smaller activities as well. So the big ones, let me start with those. So I have this position. There's a small staff that works with me. So when I say we, I'm talking about the office of the chair, because I can't do all of this by myself. There's lots of other people that participate. Some are paid staff, and there are volunteers and many supporters that come out to help us in many different ways. So the chair has, I say, many different activities, and one of the biggest ones and the most well-known one is the Transgender Archives at the University of Victoria. So I founded this chair. I also founded the Transgender Archives prior to the founding of the chair. So the Transgender Archives have just completed 10 years. We started in fall of 2011, and we've completed our 10th year and are into our 11th year. And the Transgender Archives focus primarily on the original documents of transgender activism and transgender research. We do collect things that are much broader than that, but that's our main focus. And for your viewers who are not accustomed to using archives or know much about archives, an archives is not actually a library. An archives is the original documents that historians use to write history. And so most of the history of transgender activism and research has not yet been written. And so these archives are especially important because this is where people come, they look at those documents, they get many different versions of what happened, and then together they try and say, okay, here's the story that we think is the most accurate story of what actually happened. So the transgender archives are housed at the University of Victoria Libraries. They are cared for by the staff at the University Libraries. There is an archives staff there that look after a number of archives that the university owns. One of the other becoming famous ones is Johnny Cash Archive, for instance, or the archives, there's an anarchist archives, or the archives of the university itself. Ours is the largest beyond the next to the university's own archives. It is the busiest one. We get visitors coming in from all over the world all the time to study in our archives. Some of them come for a day or two, some of them come for a week, some of them come for a whole year to work with the materials in the archives. And of course, students and faculty here at the university use them on a regular basis.
Now, when you say largest, sorry.
That's exactly where I was going to go.
Okay, go.
So when I say largest archives in the transgender archives in the world, most people's conception of what that means is a lot smaller than it actually is. So when archivists discuss how big is your archives, what they do is they say, well, if we took all the books and all the bankers boxes that we store things in, and the artwork and the vinyl records and you know all the different kinds of things that we have, the tapes of various kinds, and put them on one big long shelf, how long would that shelf be? And in our case, we estimate that that shelf would be a football field and a half long.
A Canadian football field?
Good question. I actually looked up the size of the Canadian, the UK, and the Australian. They're not all the same, but they're approximately the same. So when I say approximately a football field and a half, about that.
Okay, we're in Canada, so we'll go with the Canadian measurement.
Right, but they're all roughly the same. And our materials come from all over the world. So we have a focus on English language materials, and that's mostly what we have, but they come from 23 countries. They're in 15 different languages, and those countries are on every continent except Antarctica. And so it's an extensive collection. It has every kind of documentation you can imagine. Most of it is paper. So when you think about a shelf a football field and a half long, that's a lot of paper. Okay. All right. But there are every other kind of things as well. So let me just take you to the webpage of the Transgender Archives to
please
give people a feeling for what we have. Let me get the right one.
Breaking news. Business owners who use video ads have shown growth of more than 50% over their competition. A well-produced video ad is just the thing that your business needs to take it to the next level. At Rainbow Wave Productions, we have the right tools and resources to create, execute, and deliver the video ad that's right for your business. Click the link below to book a free consultation today.
Okay, and I'm just going to move it around on my screen a little bit to make it a bit easier for me to see. Okay, so this is our homepage, and we have here is a display about one of the magazines that we have put online. This is actually the first publication that was specifically the oldest of our publications. It was not the first. So let me say that transgender people started to organize in the 20s and 30s in Germany during the period of the Weimar Republic. When the Nazis came to power, they closed everything down. And in fact, when you see black and white photographs of piles of books that were burnt by the Nazis, most of those books came from the Institute for the Study of Sexual Science, which was run by someone named Magnus Hirschfeld, which is where some of the first gender transformations took place, and some of the first surgical transformations took place. So one of the first places the Nazis went is they raided that place. Magnus Hirschfeld was away at the time, and so he survived, but the Institute did not survive. And organizing as people who identified themselves as some kind of trans, they identified themselves at that time as transvestites based on a book by Magnus Hirschfeld of that name. So that was the first organizing by someone who, by people who called themselves trans of some sort. But that all stopped, and it took up again in the United States in the late 50s, early 60s. And so this image here, oops, the wrong one. Let me get to it. Where did it go? This image here is of a magazine that was started by someone named Virginia Prince. It was called Transvestia. These are some of the images from Transvestia. And that was started in 1960. And that was right at the beginning of trans organizing when it started again later. And so we have this full run of this. We actually own the copyright for it now. We purchased that. And it is all available online, completely online. So just to give you a little bit more of a feeling about us, there is this short video which we can watch if we have the time.
Of course.
Okay, well, why don't I just do that right now then? It's important for any people to know their history if they're going to have pride in who they are and to feel a sense of dignity. So the Transgender Archives serves as a repository of the history of transgender activism and research.
It's so important to have spaces like this accessible and open to the public. There is a real lack of intergenerational memory, so places like this are really important for people to have somewhere to come and look and find and get engaged and work with the material, because that's what really brings it to life.
It is amazing, and I'm totally devastated that I'm not here longer. I will definitely be back.
It's a beautiful location. The collection itself is amazing.
There is a home, that there is space for BIPOC stories in the Trans Archives at UVic, and that space is growing larger with every donation.
The Transgender Archives are one of the defining collections of the University of Victoria Libraries and a foundational collection for the future of transgender studies.
That's wonderful.
Quite dynamic.
Well done.
Thank you. So just a quick look at what's in our collections. I'll give people an opportunity themselves to look at this in more detail, but here you'll see there's quite a range of kinds of content. And down the side here is a list of the major collections that we have. And we have a whole section of digital content. And I recommend, this is our newest piece, Word of Mouth, and it's a tour through history of transgender activism, lots of great video clips, lots of image material, and some excellent stories. So I highly recommend that, but you can see there's more. This is the whole Transvestia collection. This is an important newsletter for the transmasculine community and other digital content, and of course more to come. So just just a quick introduction also, and I'll mention this discovery tool, which is something that we've been working on for some time. And it gives people an opportunity to look at what is in our newsletter collection, which is very extensive. And you'll see some numbers up here about what has been cataloged in this tool. And so you can go in and you can search by people's names, you can search by places, you can search by events, publications, and keywords, people, places, dates, titles, and keywords.
Mm.
And right now, these numbers are just about to be updated. We've just had a series of interns working on it, and we've just added over 1,000 more articles and another 100 or so events and another 12 publications, I believe. So that's been rapidly growing. And so that's a little introduction to the Transgender Archives. As I said before, it is owned by the University of Victoria Libraries, and I, as the founder and subject matter expert, am the person that does all the public outreach and all of the recruitment of new materials. Everything in our collection, with a very, very small exception, has been donated to us, and we're very, very thankful to all of those donors who have made this possible.
Well, I must say, allow me to say that your accomplishment is quite magnanimous. Like, holy moly. And you said you only started in 2011?
That's correct.
But if I may refer back to a little bit of what you mentioned, the chair was established in 2016.
Yes.
Okay, so the archives came together first, then the chair.
Yeah, so we've had a progression. The archives came together first. That was 2011. Then in 2014, we put on a conference. And so at that point, I and the people who were involved in organizing the conference, which was mostly staff from the Transgender Archives, thought it was an archives conference. We would do it once, and that would be very exciting. And people came. We had about 85 people. We had some luminaries from trans activism come as our keynote speakers. And lots of people said, well, I can't wait till the next one. I'll see you next year. And we had a bit of a panic because we had not planned any more conferences, and next year was too soon. But we realized that we had to keep making conferences. So we have done them every 2 years, and they have expanded out from archives, and they've expanded in size. So we had a 2014 conference. We had a 2016 conference. 2016, we had about 150 people. We had a 2018 conference. We had about 300 people. They started coming from countries around the world. And then we planned a 2020 conference for I think it was April, around the beginning of April in 2020. Well, you remember what happened on March 15th, 2020.
Yeah, of course.
So
we will not forget.
So that conference had to get canceled. We optimistically rescheduled it for 1 year later. And by the time that 1 year later was starting to roll around, we realized it had to be completely online. And so we had a steep learning curve, and we did put on a 2021 conference, and we had just shy of 400 people attend. And it was much more international than the others had been because, of course, you could come from anywhere in the world, and we were cognizant of that and how we plan things in terms of time zones and so on. But we ended up having people from 23 countries all around the world. And amazing. So that was a really happy event. And now we're busy planning for 2023. And so let me just take a look at that one.
So that is something we are going to be looking forward to then.
I hope that you folks who are with us today will be interested in that. I'm not sure, is my screen sharing properly?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so we have a website for that. At this point, we're still, it's still quite a few months away. So we're behind the scenes doing a lot of organizing, but there's not a lot up on the website yet about what's going to happen. But what is here is a call for proposals. And so I encourage people who might be interested to think about submitting a proposal. It's open till November 15th. And I want to point out it's not just for scholars or community people. We, by design, have our conferences be about half academic types, and academic types range from undergraduate students to fancy professors, and half community people who are activists, who are service providers, who are family members, who are folks who have something to say. And that 50-50 is both in terms of the people who attend and the people who are speakers at our conferences. This one will be hybrid, and so there's an online component and there is an in-person component.
Oh, okay. The in-person is going to happen where?
At the University of Victoria.
Mhm.
All right. So when we were planning for 2020, because things kept doubling, we thought we were going to have to move down to the conference center. And now that we're going hybrid, we're still expecting to see about 500 people at the conference, but we think that we'll have the number who are in person will be small enough to still fit them into University of Victoria facilities. So for the local folks, I encourage you to come. I will also point out that financial consideration should not be a barrier. We work very hard to raise money to make sure that people who can't afford the registration fee can still come. So it starts on a Thursday night, March 30th, and it goes through till Sunday midday on April 2nd. And so I encourage people to stay in touch, sign up for our mailing list. There's lots of ways to get the information as we start to announce who our speakers will be. But typically, we'll have a special speaker on a Friday night, a special speaker on a Saturday night. We have a panel of young people, which we'll be closing out with, and we have a panel of elders, which will be in the middle of the conference, so speaking about their experiences. So we try and cover a range. Opening night is usually a pretty fancy, pretty big affair, where we invite lots of local movers and shakers to come and learn more about who we are. So I invite everybody to come to that. So those are the big things that we do at the Chair in Transgender Studies, but there are other things that we do, and I'd like to say a little bit more about those.
Please do.
Please.
So let's just go back to this one. So first of all, I just wanted to make territorial acknowledgement. I'm sorry I forgot to do that earlier on. So we acknowledge with respect the Lekwungen people on whose traditional territory University of Victoria stands, and the Songhees, Esquimalt, and Saanich people whose historical relationships with the land continue to this day. This is our vision, our mission, and our commitment. This is what drives us at the Chair in Transgender Studies. So what we're trying to work towards is a world where trans plus and all gender diverse people can thrive, free from the limitations of gender and intersecting oppressions. And our mission is three-pronged: to provide inspiration and hope to trans plus people and our allies everywhere, to contribute to the development and dissemination of accurate knowledge about trans plus people, and to help to build strong and resilient trans plus social and cultural communities. And through it all, we are committed to applying an intersectional lens and our work to advance reconciliation, racial justice, equity, and inclusion for all. And so I do have a short video here. This one is 4 minutes. I don't know, is that too long, or I'll just keep talking? What would you prefer?
Yep. No, just share the video. We'll catch it in editing.
Okay.
It's important to preserve the truth about the path we took to accomplish what we have. The truth will free us all.
In terms of access to care, in terms of decriminalization, in terms of ability to get identity documents, the kinds of everyday things that make our lives livable. That's what we need to work on.
On November 7, 2017, myself and 6 other trans-identified individuals were elected to public office in the United States.
Whoever you are and what you want to say, they won't be able to take that away from you. If you're so good, they can't deny you. Make your body of work or your vision as great as you can make it, because then no one will be able to sort of take that away from you.
You got to be ready to fight. Plain and simple. They are going to come at you every way possible. And you must be prepared to put them on their ass if you can.
Being trans is hard. It's really hard. It's not easy. Talking to and meeting with trans adults is personally very important because they did it. They managed to get through all of this, and so maybe I can as well.
It is amazing, and I'm totally devastated that I'm not here longer. I will definitely be back.
There is a home, that there is space for BIPOC stories in the Trans Archives at UVic, and that space is growing larger with every donation.
We have nothing but curiosity to lead us forward. So first of all, just breathe curiosity.
Hi, I'm Don. I am your wonderful Alberni Valley video specialist. What is a video specialist, you might ask? Well, he's somebody who is creative and knows how to use available technology. And with that combination, your imagination is the only limit. Here we are in our green screen studio where we can do so many things. All you have to do is imagine it and we will do it for you. We can create cinematic video ads for your business. We can live stream your event anywhere, anytime, in real time. And we have this studio where we have creative technology at our fingertips. Give us a call today and we'll show you what we can do.
That's wonderful. I think the most impressive.
That's so moving.
The most impressive thing is, holding space for so many stories and so many people. Aaron, did you want to comment on that or talk about that a little bit?
One of the things that is a challenge for us is our location. And so here we are on an island off the end of the continent, and we have this extensive collection in the archives, and we have the conferences that we organize, and we do these scholarship programs and the fellowships programs, and the scholarships are for UVic students, and the fellowships are to allow people to come here. So we recognize that it's not always so easy to get here. But nonetheless, despite those challenges, as you could see from the material that went by in those videos, perhaps quickly, that we very much have a global reach. And we have a global reach both through our media outreach. I hadn't mentioned yet that we have extensive social media. And so we're active on Twitter and Instagram and Facebook, and we're just starting to become active on LinkedIn. And we have a YouTube channel, and we record a lot of what we do, not quite everything, but almost everything we do. We have YouTube videos. And so part of what we are dedicated to is making it possible for people to come here, and also making it possible for people who don't come here to have access to what we do. And so increasingly people are comfortable with using Zoom to communicate, and we do a lot of online events and increasingly hybrid events. But people also need to come here. If they're going to work in the archives, if they're going to study with me, they need to be here in person, because we are digitizing content from the archives. But when you think about how much is in there, we can't possibly digitize all of that. We're never going to digitize all of that. We digitize the things that we think are most in demand. And I mentioned the word of mouth online digital exhibit. We'll be creating more digital exhibits to contextualize and give meaning to the work we do. But still, people need to be here for some of it. They need to have access. We try and have scholarships and fellowships for that. And we need to get it out to them. So the material in the archives is rare and one of a kind, and it cannot circulate. So we do put it up as much as we can. But then we have all these speakers. And so one of the things I want to emphasize is that we have international visitors who come as visiting scholars. So some of them are graduate students who come and work for 3 months, 6 months, or a year, and I assist them with their work. Some of them are faculty members who are on sabbatical and come here again, who work for 3 months, 6 months, a year. Some of them are community members who are working on art projects or developing a local history of their region, and they want to see what do we have in our collections. Because remember, they're from 23 countries. And so it's not just local stuff by any. And so we have things from Poland, we have things from Sweden, we have things from South America, we have things from China, from all over the world. And so we're doing our best to be accessible. Everything that we do is either free or entrance by donation, or we have a subsidy program to help people to access it. And you may have also noticed, as things went by again kind of quickly, we do lots of arts and cultural events as well. So that's part of community building. The piece that doesn't show up in those videos is that I also work on a number of research projects and assist others with research projects and advise government and various agencies. I just did an hour-and-a-half advice consultation with Google about their search engine, and does their search engine pick up trans topics and treat trans people appropriately when they do their searches. So there's a whole range of advice that Stats Can. They've changed their census questions, and I was involved with that. Involved with the project where we're working on how electronic health records record people's sex and gender information, and who has access to it, under what circumstances, and what is recorded and is not recorded. Doing a project on employment for trans people. So there's a whole lot of research that's also happening that's part of the chair's activities. So there's many different ways that we try and engage to bring people in and also to send information out. Another aspect is lots of media. So I talk to the media every couple of weeks, I'd say on average. I'm called upon from the media to speak with them about trans topics. So there's many different ways that the chair is working on projects. The word of mouth exhibit, which I've mentioned several times, is built on a research project where we interviewed long interviews with 17 elder activists in the transgender world. And so that's kind of behind the word of mouth exhibit. And we don't expect a lot of people other than researchers are going to want to watch 17 interviews, the shortest of which I think is an hour and a half, and they go on from
Okay.
there. But the word of mouth exhibit gives you context and little clips from it and explains what people are talking about and why it's important and how the different connections are built. And we call it word of mouth because we're talking about how trans people found each other before the internet was available. And it was a very different world.
Oh, absolutely. I'm curious about a couple of things, if I may. First off is I'm going to mark my calendar for March 30th. And what time does the opening night start?
We haven't actually nailed that down, but probably around 6:30 or so.
Okay, it's going to be in Victoria, so
Gonna be
we're
in
planning a trip, Scott. And then another question I had after what you've been discussing so far is, so the archive started in 2011, the chair was founded in 2016. How did it end up with us? It could have easily gone to some other country or some other organization. I'm curious to know how it ended up with us, and we're fortunate that it has ended up with us.
Good question. So there's this progression. So first the archives 2011, and the conferences started in 2014, and they were continuing. And at some point in there, I had a change in my career path in the sense that I was from 2002 to 2012, I was the Dean of Graduate Studies at UVic. Now, universities in Canada generally put a time limit on that kind of position of 10 years. And so at the end of 10 years, it's like, okay, what am I going to do now? And so my original appointment at UVic was as a sociology professor, and that was one option, was going back to being a sociology professor, but I wanted something a little bit bigger. I was accustomed to being thinking bigger than that after being the Dean of Graduate Studies for all the graduate programs on the entire campus. And so I had some time off accrued to me. I hadn't had a study leave for 12 years at that point. And so I had some time to rejuvenate and think about where do I want to go. And during that time, I thought about starting something which ended up being the chair in Transgender Studies. And so basically all three of these, the archives, the conferences, and the chair in Transgender Studies are here because I'm here, and they were my idea. And I was not interested in taking them to another university. I like UVic and I like living in Victoria. But the challenge was that university, having been in administration at the university, I had a very good grasp of what the university was, what it took to make change at the university. And it was clear to me the university was not going to fund this just because I said, I think it's a good idea, because it costs money to run a chair in Transgender Studies. And so my challenge during my time on study leave was to raise the funds to back this project. And so it's at the University of Victoria because it was my idea and I'm here, and it's at the University of Victoria because I raised the funds that were then donated to the University of Victoria to have a chair in Transgender Studies here. And so I want to give a shout out to the Tawani Foundation of Chicago, who were the original funders of the chair in Transgender Studies. So they did not give us an endowment. Many people think this is an endowed chair. And an endowment means that they put a whole lot of money into basically a savings account and you live off of the interest. It's not like that. So Tawani Foundation, yeah, I wish. I'm still looking for that donor who will do that. Tawani Foundation gave us a whole lot of money to get us started. And so that's what we've been working from. And I've continued to raise funds in order to make that original donation last as long as possible and to maintain the costs of running the chair, which is basically salaries for the staff and money to pay for the programming and events. And all those subsidies and free events cost money to put on. My salary continues to be paid by the University of Victoria, where I was employed before there was a chair, and I hopefully will continue to be employed as long as there is a chair. So my salary is not covered by donated money, but there is staff who are covered by that, and our program costs are covered by donated money, which continues to come in. So this is my appeal to anybody who's listening, that we spend that money on programming, not on me, and we spend that money on staffing, and a lot of our money goes to making sure that all of our events are accessible to everybody regardless of their financial situation. And probably don't need to remind people that trans people in general are underemployed, unemployed, low income relative to their training and experiences and skills.
Wow, that's marvelous. I think you have a bright future ahead of you. I mean, it was a great idea, and it continues to be a very great idea.
Okay, and I'll just emphasize that those donations are important to us, and they are tax receivable, both in Canada and in the United States. So if there's any Americans who listen to this, we can give a tax receipt that is good for the CRA, Canada Revenue Agency, or the IRS in the US.
Okay.
Aaron, thank you so much for not only sharing all this with us, but for taking the initiative and starting it up and driving it. And I can only imagine that it was not an easy or simple thing. So kudos to you for that. And thank you so much for joining us today. And I know Don and I are both looking forward to seeing the Moving Trans Forward conference in March. Is there anything else you want to say before we cut it off?
I just want to invite your viewers to sign up for our mailing list or follow us on social media so that they'll know about events that are coming up in addition to the conference, because we're putting on public events all the time. And so that's the best way to know about it.
Wonderful. Well, we'll be sure to put up those links. And
definitely.
Thank you once again.
Yes, and definitely we shall spread the news by word of mouth.
Thank you. My pleasure. Thank you so much for your interest.
Thank you so much for your time, and we really appreciate you taking the time to be on the show with us. That was such a great interview with Dr. Aaron Devor.
I can't believe how much information he crammed into a half-hour episode. That was fantastic.
It was such a delight to speak with him. He came prepared with all his slides and presentations and everything, and we learned so much. And as a matter of fact, we are so excited and looking forward to being there at that event on March 30th, 2023. Hopefully we'll see you there too.
So remember, that's Moving Trans History Forward 2023. We'll have the website up at the end of this episode.
That's it for this episode of Queer View Mirror. See you next time.